So the first of our snippets for this week looks at constitutional issues during the Clinton administration, um, is beginning with the impeachment scandal. And remember last week in our presentations, we looked at the Morrison versus Olson case, which dealt with the issue of the constitutionality of the independent counsel. You know, Clinton's fate really sort of seals the conventional wisdom against the council. So, you know, both Clintons, Bill and Hillary, are people that would not win prizes for government ethics. I mean, especially Bill. There was always this sense that they were playing a little bit fast and loose in the rules. His nickname was Slick Willie. And after he's elected, the New York Times, in particular, pushes this scandal involving a proposed retirement community in northwestern Arkansas called Whitewater that was entered into by Bill and Hillary Clinton and two friends of theirs, James and Susan McDougal. It's a very complicated line of argument. The Clintons lost money on Whitewater, but the allegation was that Bill Clinton, as governor of Arkansas, intervened to uphold, to basically use his influence to prop up a savings and loan that was owned by McDougal, which then went under. And when a bank goes under, the federal government has to make the depositors whole. Very little evidence for this, and nothing came out in the independent counsel investigation. But that's how it started. And the independent counsel who's ultimately appointed is this guy named Kenneth Starr. Starr is convinced that the Clintons are corrupt, but can never quite get his hands on them. He investigates extensively in Arkansas. He winds up convicting of corruption the Arkansas governor, the number 3 person in the Justice Department, a guy who was a close Clinton ally. He calls the First Lady, first time in American history. She's called before a grand jury to discuss why she had not turned over billing records of hers from the 1980s when she was a lawyer in Little Rock that Starr had subpoenaed. But it gets to 1996 and it looks like Starr has struck out. I mean, he doesn't have anything on the Clintons. And then he learns of this of the outgrowth of this lawsuit brought by an Arkansas state employee named Paula Jones, who alleges that she was sexually harassed by Bill Clinton when Clinton was governor of Arkansas. And Jones's allegations almost certainly are true. The allegations were that there was some conference, and Jones was there in her capacity as a state employee. She was a secretary, and Clinton invited her to a room and allegedly exposed himself. She declined advances. She never seemed to have suffered any job consequences for this, but nonetheless she sued. And her case is picked up by conservative lawyers largely because there was a change in sexual harassment law passed in the early 90s and ironically signed by President Bill Clinton that in cases like this allowed in the discovery process, when you're preparing before the lawsuit goes to court, if an allegation was that a boss had sexually harassed an employee, that the boss could be asked about voluntary sexual liaisons in the workplace, because the theory is if the boss is sleeping around, that might provide unintentional pressure on an employee to conform to the boss's sexual advances. And Bill Clinton, as we all know, had a reputation for not being faithful to his wife. So for conservative lawyers, this was perfect. The idea was we can get Clinton before in a deposition, so he could be under oath and ask him basically about affairs. Clinton fights the lawsuit, saying that he wants it deferred until after he leaves office, but the Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision called Jones versus Clinton, which hasn't had an impact on the Trump decisions from this year, says that the case can go forward, and in a line which is a tremendously bad prediction of events, says that if properly managed by the district court, it appears to us highly unlikely that this will occupy any substantial amount of the president's, Clinton is the petitioner here, the president's time. It turns out this leads to Clinton's impeachment. Starr long path to this. Starr finds out that Clinton had been having an affair with a former White House intern named Monica Lewinsky. The Jones lawyers subpoena Lewinsky. Lewinsky lies to them about the affair at Clinton's urging. Clinton also lies to the Jones lawyers. Starr gets evidence of the affair through surreptitious recordings by Lewinsky of conversations she had with the person that she thought was her friend, a woman named Linda Tripp, and all hell breaks loose. This becomes a national story. The Drudge Report, this sort of right-leaning website, breaks the story. This is really when the Drudge Report becomes mainstream in terms of the media, and the sense is that Clinton is almost certainly going to go down. Clinton had two options. One was to come clean and ask for, sort of apologize to his wife and to the country. Option two was to lie. He chose to lie.
But I want to say one thing to the American people. I want you to listen to me. I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I never told anybody to lie, not a single time, never. These allegations are false, and I need to go back to work for the American people. Thank you.
He sounds very sincere, doesn't he? Of course, the entire statement was a lie. But the issue becomes sort of polarized in partisan politics. Republicans like Starr, Democrats defend Clinton. They say that Starr is overreaching. And the key issue really in the Clinton impeachment proceeding is, what is the offense? The Democratic argument is basically what this is criminalizing a consensual sexual affair. And that if you're going to impeach a president over that, that's just a crazy standard. The Republican argument is that this is the sanctity of the courts, that Clinton committed perjury, which he did in his deposition. He lied about whether he's having the affair, and you can't have a president who commits perjury. I think the answer is probably somewhere in the middle. I mean, it's sort of a hypocrisy by Clinton, basically saying that I'm going to sign a law that will make it easier for victims of workplace sexual harassment to sue, but I'm not going to hold myself responsible to the law that I'm signing. Starr did a terrible job prosecuting the case. He dragged out immunity proceedings with Lewinsky. He hoped that he could rely on Miss Tripp, the one who turned over the tapes. But Tripp is about the most unpopular person in the United States by 1988. It's basically everyone sees her as terrible. And the key break in the case ultimately comes when Starr learns that that Lewinsky had kept a souvenir of a liaison with Clinton, a blue dress which had Clinton's DNA on it. So basically, at that point, they have him dead to rights. Starr produces a report to the House urging Clinton's impeachment for lying. But the public response to this is basically, look, we have to distinguish between lying on, say, an illegal arms sale or a corrupt deal with a foreign dictator or a business interest or something like that, and lying about having sex, consensual sex, with someone and concealing it from your wife. And the Republicans who criticize Clinton can never quite get around that that obstacle, even though they don't see it that way. I mean, they tremendously admire Starr, and the classic example of this comes in the activities of this man, Mike Pappas, who represented this district in central New Jersey. And there's this custom in the House, they're called minute speeches. So on certain days when the House is in session, any member of Congress can go up and speak on any issue for 1 minute. And Pappas gets up and decides that he wants to speak is not quite the word for what we're going to be listening to, in praise of the Starr inquiry. This is from the summer of 1998.
Mr. Speaker, twinkle, twinkle, Kenneth Starr, now we see how brave you are. Up above the Pentagon sting, like a fair judge in the ring. Twinkle, twinkle, Kenneth Starr, now we see how brave you are. When subpoenas and lies are gone, when obstruction shines upon, then you throw your trump cards down. Twinkle, twinkle, all brought down. Twinkle, twinkle, Kenneth Starr, now we see how brave you are. Then the Congress in the dark thanks you for your courage and spark. We could not see which way to go if you did not lead us so. Twinkle, twinkle, Kenneth Starr, now we see how brave you are.
This little minute becomes infamous when Pappas's Democratic opponent, a Princeton professor named Rush Holt, cuts an ad just showing the excerpt of Pappas singing, and the tagline is Mike Pappas out of touch, out of tune, and Pappas loses his seat as a result of this. Is a backlash. Republicans move forward nonetheless with impeachment. These are the House impeachment managers. The Chief Justice William Rehnquist serves as the presiding officer in the impeachment trial. This is a lot like the Trump impeachment trial in terms of the Senate action. Everyone knows the Democrats are going to back Clinton, just as everyone knew the Republicans in the Senate were going to back Trump in the impeachment trial, and Clinton ultimately is acquitted. And I think you can see in the Clinton affair a kind of lowering of the bar with regards to impeachment that probably set precedents that we don't want to go back to. So that's all I have for the first session. Hope everyone is well.